Congratulations, we've just elected a new pope. No, wait. Flavio Briatore is a team principal again. Welcome back to Motorsport 101. Our worst fears were realised as, once again, Flavio Briatore is in charge of a Formula One team. Welcome to episode 580 of Motorsport 101. I'm your friendly neighbourhood host, Dre Harrison. Glad you could join us. And this is going to be an ultra thick and heavy Formula One episode because we have so much shit to talk about on this edition. Like, I actually enjoyed the Miami Grand Prix for what it's worth. I thought it was a pretty solid Grand Prix in the grand scheme of things, but it was also a ridiculously newsworthy Grand Prix where we have a lot of shit to talk about. And actually, we're recording this on Wednesday night where an earth-shattering double announcement dropped coming from Team Enstone, which we'll talk about very, very shortly. But with me for the next hour to break it down and try and make some sense of it all is Mr. Cameron Buckley. Hello, sir.
Yes, just when you thought the Team Enstone was out of bad ideas, they go and bring the race-fixing clown back. Unchecked power to Flavio Briatore. I hate this timeline.
Yeah, welcome back to hell.
Now, to be quite clear, I already hated this timeline. But I didn't need any more reasons.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Jodie Whittaker timeline of Doctor Who. It's like, we all know she wasn't the problem, it was the writers behind it. Yeah, it's all...
That era had writers?
Less said about that, the better. But yes, this is going to be a lengthy podcast talking about the breaking news coming out of Alpine and all the drama that comes from that. Miami in itself, no Will Smith included, but plenty of news, including the 10-year extension, Kimi Antonelli making history, an absolutely chaotic sprint with only 19 cars in it and a boatload of water. McLaren absolutely whooping that arse on Sunday, and Ferrari doing the complete opposite. Again, as you do. So all of that and much, much more in the next hour and change or so. But first of all, here's some places you can find us, and we'll get that out of the way quick this time. We're on youtube.com/motorsport101. We're on facebook.com/motorsport101. We're on Twitter at motorsport_101. If you want to follow us on Blue Sky, you can at D Harrison and at C Buckley 917. Take out the vowels. .bsky.social. And if you want to get some extra video content as well, you can on our Instagram page, Motorsport101 Pod. You can check that out when you get a chance as well. All of our written content as well goes on our website, motorsport101.com. And if you really like us, you can back us financially on Patreon, patreon.com/Motorsport101, including Alex, who's our brand new Patreon backer. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for supporting this silly, silly podcast. After all, it's a great time to be a podcaster in this world.
Yeah,
never thought I'd say that.
Yeah,
because now there's a Golden Globes award for podcasting.
The Golden Globes is adding an award for podcasting, which is my idea of hell. This is the 8th circle of hell. The Golden Globes has opened the doors to hell. That's what we're really doing. Like, I just think it's another excuse to give Joe Rogan an award, which is, again, is my idea of torture.
Well, if we follow the WWE, this is just another excuse to choke him out.
Well, that works too. And if all else fails, you can choke out Pat McAfee again. There's always room for choking out Pat McAfee.
Podcasters get no penance here on this
absolutely
podcast.
Not. So
come here, Dre.
Yeah. While Cam wrestled me out of this headlock, before we get into a big creative musical interlude, we got to talk a little bit about Alpine. Now, for those who haven't been paying attention, this started roughly this time last night. 24 hours ago, there was a shock announcement that Oliver Oakes had resigned. The team principal of Alpine had resigned from the team with immediate effect. Again, bit of a genuine bombshell, this one. There was no real sign or inclination that he was going to resign from his post. And immediately, people started spitballing the idea that he's had a falling out of some kind with executive advisor, was his official role, Flavio Briatore. Now, we can confirm, well, Flavio since released a statement saying that is not the case. I'll read it out to you right here. It says, quote, a lot has been said in the past 24 hours incorrectly associating the decision of Ollie resigning to an alleged disagreement or that we shared different views. This is completely false and far from the truth. Me and Ollie have a very good relationship and had long-term ambitions to drive this team forward together. We respect Ollie's request to resign and have therefore accepted his resignation. The reasons are not related to the team and are of a personal nature. I will continue to be more and more involved with the team together with the strong management we already have in place. We will work hard on improving our position this season and preparing for 2026. Included is a message from Ollie to the whole team. Ollie said in his own statement, it's been a privilege to lead everyone at Enstone. What a team, what a place. It is a personal decision for me to step down. Flavio has been like a father to me, nothing but supportive since I took the role, as well as giving me the opportunity. Everything is in place for 2026 and where this dream deserves to be. I believe in Enstone. Not Joe Hendry. But yeah, it's a weird one, this, because this also came out a few hours after the other announcement that dropped this morning that Franco Colapinto is taking Jack Doohan's seat. The twist is, it's only for the next 5 races. It is a 5-race deal for Franco Colapinto to take Jack Doohan's seat. And, well, this one was a bit more predictable. This had been kind of rumbled and teased about for months since Colapinto was signed as a reserve driver on a 5-year contract.
But reserve drivers don't get 5-year contracts.
No, never. Not in a million fucking years, and yet here we are. So, a lot of dust to clear up here, Cam. I mean, like, the Jack Doohan swap was more of a surprise because the talk coming out of the mainstream media until Monday after the Grand Prix was it looked like he was going to be safe until the summer break. That's what the race reported a couple of weeks ago. And something clearly changed in that Alpine camp for that to suddenly come around. And next thing you know, our worst fears were realised. Jack Doohan lost just 7 Grand Prix, including the one from last year, as an Alpine driver, and he's back to being a reserve again.
Renault, man. This is nothing new. They are currently in a knockdown, drag-out fight with Red Bull to mismanage their drivers harder. Because, like, just when it looks like Jack is starting to get his shit together out on track, I mean, he outqualified Gasly on merit this past weekend.
First time.
And was taken out of the Grand Prix through absolutely no fault of his own. This happens. And it was predictable, but it's aggravating with how it's played out.
I mean,
this team is so fucking unstable and has been for really about a 5-year period. We are now on team principal 7, count them, 7 team principals since 2020.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
They've gone through more managers than Watford and Chelsea combined. It is wild how that's happened. And, I mean, with the Doohan situation, I mean, the writing was on the wall in the off-season when they signed Franco Colapinto, because you don't... It's like in biking terms, the equivalent of handing Johan Zarco a contract to Suzuki and saying, here, hold this for a minute. We'll figure out something for you later. Only this time they actually came through. And don't get me wrong, this was Alpine missing an opportunity. We all saw it last year. They very lately entered the Carlos Sainz sweepstakes and missed out. Because apparently Alpine wasn't in the race until Briatore rolled up and was like, why aren't you trying to sign Carlos Sainz? And they didn't get him in the end.
Heartbreaking. The worst person you know made a great point.
Yeah, like, why aren't you trying to go get Carlos Sainz? Carlos Sainz missed out, went to Williams instead. Then they had...
thanking his lucky stars he did. We'll expand on that later.
Then they had an open test between Mick Schumacher and Jack Doohan. Jack Doohan won that open test, got the seat in August, and then a month later, Franco Colapinto hits the open market as a Williams driver and is hotter than fish grease to start his F1 career. Immediately, teams are lining up about whether they can sign this dude or not. You know, James Vowles put out a $20 million hands-off warning, basically, and then he has a couple of crashes, he cools down off his own hype train, and then ends up going to Alpine anyway as a reserve. And the moment he comes in as a reserve, we're all sitting here saying, well, the writing's on the wall here, Jack. Like, immediately, the rumours started dropping that there was a performance clause in Doohan's contract that could get rid of him after 5 Grand Prix. Like, it seemed doomed from the start, and it didn't help when, via other reports, it turns out Colapinto's got state-sponsored oil backing. The state's oil company in Argentina is now partner.
Reliable when it comes to F1 sponsorship.
Yeah. It's a good old-fashioned oil partnership. It's all reliable when it comes to getting your foot in the door. A state-backed company of some kind, and the oil is a classic. I believe Colapinto's big sponsor is Argentine's state oil company, and they have now formed a strategic partnership with Alpine's energy brand, Eni. So the writing was on the wall. There's clearly a short-term incentive, money-wise, at least, to put Colapinto in the car. And Jack Doohan, let's be blunt, wasn't good enough to silence that noise. I don't think it was terrible, but he wasn't good enough where it's like, well, shut it down. He's clearly safe here.
Yeah, so the last couple weekends were a little better. First couple weekends were really quite rough. Some of it is of his own making, some of it not. But ultimately, unless he came in and he just lit Pierre Gasly up, I don't think that this story ends any differently.
And he wasn't going to, because Pierre Gasly's a really good Formula One driver with over 100 career starts to his name. I think it's near 150 career starts now to his name. You don't walk into that team and beat Pierre Gasly. Like, Esteban Ocon could barely handle Pierre Gasly, and we rate him as a driver. Like, they were very evenly matched in their time at Alpine.
Yeah, and Esteban lost his job for it and went to a more stable team. Which team? Haas.
Yeah. Haas. The model of stability. Yeah, them.
Yeah. Alpine are a mess. What can we say about Flavio Briatore that hasn't already been said over the last 17 years? Fuck this guy.
I still, to this day, can't believe that Formula One just straight up decided to lift the man's lifetime ban. The idea of both Flavio Briatore and Pat Simons being allowed to work within Formula One is grim, in my humble opinion. They fixed the race. They extort
all the things that people want to say about certain events in the past, basically since MBS got in control. Michael Massey, F1 Ixed. These guys literally did that.
Yeah.
And it literally directly influenced the 2008 World Championship.
Yeah. They fixed the race. They committed extortion. They threatened the career of a young driver.
Successfully ended the career of that young driver.
Yeah. Nelson Piquet Jr. was driven out of Formula One. He never got another job in F1 again after that. They committed extortion and they fixed the race. They were banned for life, and then F1 decided, they can still they can work. It's fine. You broke the most sacred trust and integrity of a sport, and yet you're allowed to compete like nothing happened. And on any level, 75-year-old Flavio Briatore, a man who has not managed a Formula One team in 17 years, is your ideal man to be team principal.
They pivoted from the youngest team principal. They've pivoted from the youngest team principal to a man measured in age by wind erosion. Like, again, even if he runs this team properly, and he's made a couple good decisions since coming in, i.e. killing their entire engine program, which is a scary thing to say because a whole lot of people are about to lose their jobs. Is Flavio Briatore.
You don't
fixed a race.
You don't, like, as far as I'm concerned, it's a bit like going to the bank and asking for a loan after you've declared bankruptcy. The bank takes one look at you and says, "You're radioactive. Get out of my office." Like, I don't...
More like after attempting to rob the bank.
It's...
I only attempted the bank robbery 17 years ago. Yeah, but you still attempted to rob this bank.
And this is a team that has had 16 principals in 5 years.
7. This is the 7th.
Is it the 7th? Who am I missing then? Because we had...
Cyril. Budkowski. Rossi. Safnauer.
Rossi wasn't team principal. He was CEO.
Was he?
Yeah.
I swear he had a very short stint as team principal. Okay, only 6.
It's 6. I asked Philip Clearing about this at Autosport, and he said to me he was never actually team principal. I had to double check this one myself, but it's 6. Lauren Rossi was CEO. Davide Brivio was in charge of the young drivers department. He was never team principal.
Yeah. I wasn't listing him off. I mean, you can just start throwing in made-up names in there like Alex Jakes did.
Yeah.
They've had so many over the last 5 years. Would you really believe that Mike Smith wasn't the team principal?
Yeah, just stick a Mike Brown in there.
Best tweet that I've seen about the situation.
Yeah. Alex Jakes is what he does. Like, it's, I mean,
beyond that, like, either way, Rossi was booted out of this situation. They've lost multiple technical staff. They lost Fernando Alonso. They lost Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri has to be cackling under his breath watching this take place.
The anniversary of his announcement signing was 2 years ago this week. And we're looking back on that now and thinking, that's aged like a fine wine. Like, I have many reasons to call Mark Webber an arsehole. I'll give him this. He was bang on about that one.
Oscar Piastri owes him that. He owes that man his life.
My man walked into Enstone and said, "Oh, I know it smells funny in here."
Yeah. God, they lost Prost. They lost their team. Their technical director, the start of last year, resigned.
Yeah, before
the car ever turned a wheel in anger.
They lost Dirk de Beer, they lost Matt Harmon, they lost Alan Permain, who'd been a part of that team for nearly 30 years. At that point, he's now at Racing Bulls.
Bob Bell,
Pat
Fry,
Davide Brivio. They've had so many talented people, so many resourceful, skillful people within those ranks, and they've lost them all. And it's a team that's in perpetual flux. It's a team that you think, well, who's running this shit? Like, Luca De Meo is the CEO of the Renault Group. He needs to get his hands dirty and say, I need a leader. Because this is ridiculous that we're still going down this road of finding new team principals. I liked Oliver Oakes. I liked the Ollie Oakes hire because he was young, he was a fresh face, he had experience running high-tech. He hadn't been a dude who had done the F1 circuit multiple times already as a team boss that could be up for hire. He brought fresh ideas to the table. People liked working for him, clearly. And when he was in charge of developing with Flavio, we can't deny it, Alpine turned their results around at the end of last year. They were going in the right direction at the end of last season. And now we're back to where we started again.
And the only reason we can say that is because they, as a factory team in Formula One, were debatably the worst team in Formula One for a good portion of last year. They were fucking horrible. And by the time they got back to their results, they got back to where they've been, which was top of the midfield. Kind of in a no man's land behind the big hitters. But that's always their ceiling. The problem is that the floor now for Alpine is, well, now they're 9th in the constructors. They're ahead of one team, and let me tell you, Sauber reek.
Sauber are bad, and this was one of their better weekends of the year, which we'll talk about in a moment. But Alpine are back to exactly where they were a year ago, in ninth and barely keeping their heads above the water. This is embarrassing. This is a team that was top 4 no less than 3 years ago.
3 years ago, they had a legitimate claim that they had one of the better cars in the field, and they were hamstrung by their engine because, well, they always are. They haven't been able to say that the last 2 years. And then they retained last year's chassis, which we know was a problematic car, for this year. Well, one other team did do that, and that's Williams. Williams look like they're having their best year in the last fucking decade.
Bad timing.
Probably best year, I would say, since 2017.
Oh, easily. Like, it's like they chose a bad time to stink, given that Williams are like a locked-in top 5 team at the moment. And James Vowles is cooking. More on that later. But honestly, they need a dependable leader that's given time to reshape and remold this team, especially in life after being a factory team next year when the reset happens and they're a Mercedes customer. They need someone who's got experience to run a team, preferably on a low-end budget, and they need to get this rebuild going because they can't keep floating and chopping and changing managers and senior technical staff and have their team be a fucking roundabout because they're never going to establish themselves as a top team in F1 again by doing that. This is a mess.
They've already got enough problems. It's like, remember Japan when they were getting bludgeoned by about 0.6 a lap in the middle sector?
Oh, yeah.
Now, tell me at Suzuka, what is that? Oh, it's 2 big straights. One of them just isn't exactly a straight. It's still full throttle. It's... If we know what we know, from what we've heard, Mercedes engine is going to come out of the gates real strong next year, as they did last time. They are not going to have an excuse if they show up next year and they are bottom of the barrel again.
That something needs to change. Like this,
like you need to make the most of what you have, right? If you don't have much, you need to still make the most of it. Alpine are like the masters in Formula One, besides Ferrari, of getting the least from what they have, because they are always in flux. They are as someone's job is always under threat.
16 bosses in 5 years, 3 drivers already, and we're 6 rounds in. I don't know what will fix this team.
1 points finished this year.
1 point's finished this year. It was and no sign of the next one coming anytime soon. And look, I like Franco Colapinto. He clearly impressed people last year. I get why Alpine has done this. He probably is a more talented driver than Doohan. But they signed Doohan too quickly. Like he was committed in August when there was no rush to sign him, and now they look like idiots because they've had to terminate a contract early because they're that desperate for a result. It's
Trey, under this regulation set, right? Let me read this off to you. 2022, they had 173 points. 2023, they had 120. Last year, they had 65, and the overwhelming majority of that was scored in the last 5 events.
Yeah, I think they had something like...
4 events, sorry.
Yeah, I think they had something like 9 or 10 points through the first 18 races.
Yeah, no finish is better than 9th until that Sao Paulo double podium.
Yeah.
And then this year so far, they have 7, all from 1 finish. It ain't great.
It is not great. Not great at all. That team needs help. Speaking of which, let's talk a little bit right after this about the 2025 Miami Grand Prix. Well, it's safe to say that Miami was a newsworthy weekend before we'd even got it started, really. Kimi Antonelli had become F1's youngest ever pole sitter. in any format. And trust me, that in any format part is doing a lot of heavy lifting, because when is a pole position not a pole position? Apparently when the sprint's involved, who knew? We're applying World Superbike's logic to pole sitting now. You know, we'll go with it. Anyway, he qualified on pole ahead of Norris and Piastri. Chaos itself reigned in the sprint, literally in some cases, because we had a deluge of rain before the sprint started. So much so, Ferrari had the brilliantly wise idea of releasing Charles Leclerc for his reconnaissance lap on intermediate tyres when the track resembled a river. Turns out he aquaplaned on slicks in a straight line, went straight into the outside wall, and Charles Leclerc suffers a DNS, did not start. It's a rare beast, that one, and it's one that happened nonetheless. Piastri beat Antonelli to turn one to take the lead early on, and he led the first 14, 15 laps of this run until the closing stages, where as the track was transitioning towards dry conditions, Fernando Alonso was put in the wall by Liam Lawson, and the subsequent safety car effectively ended the race. It also allowed Norris to switch under a VSC, saving a bucket load of time. He was able to retake the lead of the race and win the sprint. We'll talk about the sprint itself in a little bit here, but we got to talk first about, well, the big news coming into the weekend was Max Verstappen became a girl dad. Whoa! Old man strength is coming into play early for Max, and that's something.
We say that while the man is, 28?
Yeah, in September. He's 27.
27 right now. Yes, dad strength. Congratulations to him and Kelly on Lily's birthday.
We love that for them.
Another contender 20 years from now for Fernando Alonso's third world championship.
Indeed. He'll finally win world title number 3 someday. But the other big news was, Cam, a 10-year contract extension to Miami, keeping it on the calendar until, and I can't believe I'm saying this, 2041. Where do we even go with this? To
the lost city of Atlantis, because you're going to have a better chance of running a race there than you will in Miami in 15 years' time.
I did joke about the fact that, hey, by the time we get to 2041, it's going to be a Sail GP event instead of a Formula One race the way it's going, which is just crazy. But it goes to show you, as much as, the thing is, right, I don't think fans actually like Miami all that much, but it's hard to deny it's a big deal around now on the F1 calendar.
It rakes in attention and money, and that's the only justification you need.
275,000 across the Grand Prix weekend, about 100,000 on race day, and those tickets are not cheap in Miami. They're well over $1,000 for the good ones over a weekend. And it's a big, big brand extension sort of round, or brand activation sort of round. Lego dropped 4 million bricks worth of F1 car onto the track, and the drivers' parade went viral because of how entertaining it was. An incredible activation from Lego. People loved that shit. Me personally, a bunch of my colleagues at the Motorsport Network were all out there trying to get brand deals, talk to people, network, click a whole heap of social, all that shit. It's a big deal event. It's a big deal round now. It's influenced the city as well. People fucking love that shit. And the amount of activations I saw from people like WhatsApp, because they were promoting their new Kimi Antonelli documentary, The Seat, which is coming out on Netflix. Which, by the way, I'll give you a 20-second review of that. Okay, so Lewis is leaving, and we're not getting Max Verstappen. Kimi, do you want the seat? Yes.
You up?
End of documentary. Thanks for watching.
Well, I can't wait to not watch that.
Yeah. But yeah.
It's I love the Lego parade. I mean, that Aston Martin's definitely a marked improvement on the real F1 car. aerodynamically. I did find it very funny crashing cars made of Lego crashing into one another. I'm shocked we didn't get a Lego-related puncture during the weekend.
You'd think, right?
But yeah, fun branding. The spectacle around the race, they clearly put a lot of work into, and it works. It gets the attention. It gets people through the door. And if you can make money, then it's going to get an extension like this.
It's a guarantee. It's a bank around now.
It's a shame it's going to be underwater in 16 years.
Look, it's a bank around. There's no denying it at this point. People roll up for it. It gets attention. I don't think people like it because of the imagery. People don't like this celebrity culture when it comes to Formula One. They don't like big fancy influencers coming down to their events. They want Formula One to be about the cars and the performance and the driving without people realizing Formula One has always been about the glitz, the glamour, the upper class, and the privilege. So yeah, you just don't like it being waved in your face because it reminds you of what this sport has always been. A glutton fest. It's
Can't really add a whole lot to that, honestly. What else is there to say? It's a race. It's a fashion show / influencer event with a race attached to it. If the race ends up being good, then that's extra gravy for F1.
And yeah, the funny thing about it is, it is Raptor points out in the chat. It's the same glitz as Monaco, but in American style, and people don't like Americana being rubbed in your face in what is a predominantly European-supported sport. Remember when we had LL Cool J do the driver intros last year? I thought, I get it. It's not for me, but I don't hate it. People pissed on that shit. I remember when it first happened last year, Formula One was like, we're going to do this 6 to 8 times a year. And then they actually did it in Miami. They didn't like it. And then it was never brought up again because the drivers complained it actually interfered with their pre-race prep. And it was dead. People do not like this shit. It's wild. But, like I said, people don't like American glitz and glamour. People either love it or they hate it. And Miami is the embodiment of that, and it's always going to rub people the wrong way. Look, for me, I'm wearing an American cap right now, and I basically am a glorified American at this point. So I loved it. It is what it is.
Get this man an order of cheese.
Yes, just cheese. Just whatever fun thing you like to just put cheese on it. Fine. Sorted. What the hell was that sprint, Cameron?
Soggy.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Soggy. Yeah, soggy. Charles Leclerc. That was the best part of Charles Leclerc's weekend. Was slamming into the wall on the formation lap aquaplane. Oh man, this is going to be. We're going to need a Ferrari intervention later in this episode, but we'll leave that for the actual Grand Prix talk. But first of all, Kimi Antonelli. Andrea Kimi Antonelli actually cooking on that lap, and then run out at turn 1 because, well, this is the races.
Yeah, this was and pardon the pun here. This was Kimi's coming to America moment right here. I was like, yes. The other thing is the sprint pole. If you actually watch sprint qualifying, it wasn't a surprise. He was just dialed in all through that sprint qualifying session. That shootout, he was him.
Mercedes had a lot of I would say specifically Kimi, because Russell really wasn't that fast this weekend.
No.
Made it work in Grand Prix trim, which we'll get to. But he had speed all the way through practice and into qualifying. The Mercedes is good at certain things. It can do the job if you nail a clean lap, something that McLaren is finding increasingly impossible to do. McLaren, what are we going to do with you? Watch you run the field over.
Yeah, more on that. I mean, that's what happened. Piastri beat him to turn 1, got a better launch, ran Kimi off the road because you can do that now because Piastri got to the apex first. And that was it. The best part of that was when Kimi said nothing for what happened at turn 1, and then the team was like, no, nothing, said Bono, and then Kimi said, good to know.
He's putting that one in the memory bank.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, beyond that, not a whole lot happened in the sprint until the safety car right at the very end. It was kind of just the McLaren's formation flying at the front.
It was wild, actually, in the sense, because leading up to that crosser, I mean, we got to a cross. I mean, the thing about Miami is, like, there was a lot of surface water and visibility was bad. It's why we had it's why the Formula One Academy race was cancelled, because of the poor visibility and the amount of standing water. And Formula One had to delay the start of the sprint by half an hour for that very same reason. Once we were able to race it, the track dried out incredibly quickly. It was dry within 15 laps, basically. And Hamilton got a sprint podium purely by being one of the first front runners to gamble by going onto slicks. And the funny thing is about it was that Norris was actually pressuring Piastri a lot on the back end of that sprint. Piastri had to actually dodge the chicane. And
it was a flash of last year. Piastri ran himself out of tires.
Yeah. Jumped over the chicane to keep his position, was somehow not punished for leaving the track and gaining a lasting advantage. And then when Piastri ducks for slicks, Norris stays out. 1 lap later, Alonso is put in the wall by Liam Lawson, race over, essentially, because Norris is able to switch on to his slicks under VSC. It's like an 11-second stop compared to a 22-second stop under VSC. The lost time, Norris makes back, comes out in front, wins the sprint. Hooray!
Yep. Now, there was one other front runner who pitted with Lewis to take benefit of the early slicks. One Mr. Max Verstappen.
Oh, boy.
All the talk this year is how much Red Bull is missing Adrian Newey, which I would counter with Red Bull got lost with Adrian Newey at the helm. What happened last year was in the works for second half of 23.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't see it rear its ugly head yet.
Yeah.
You know who they are missing right now? Jonathan Wheatley. Because that was the worst unsafe release from a team you'd never have expected it from that I think we've seen in recent memory. They just released him right into Kimi. Kimi has to bail out, has to run twice through the pit lane to do his pit stop. Max shatters his front wing, carries that damage for the rest of the race, and is clapped with a 10-second time penalty. Very well deserved for that unsafe release.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It was the worst unsafe release penalty I can remember. They're normally 5 seconds. This was 10. Because it was extra egregious, and I can't blame them for it, because, Red Bull's light carrier got it completely wrong. It was a human error, as Christian Horner said after the fact. Ted Kravitz was out there, and honestly, I'm shocked he was able to suppress his huge hate boner when asking Christian Horner, well, what happened? I've never seen something like that before. And I was like, yeah, it was a human error. And yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was just a huge screw up on the lights, and they just released the Max right into the path of Kimi Antonelli's car. And honestly, Kimi and to a degree Max did well that they didn't run over any of Mercedes' pit crew. That could have been so much worse than how it actually turned out.
Yeah. And both of them made the point out. They were just glad that no one got hurt. But a disastrous decision that actually put Max out of the points for the first time in a points-paying session since 2016.
Yeah.
When he has finished, he has been in the points every time since, what was it, Belgium 16?
Belgium 16, yeah.
No longer.
Yeah, because the race finished under yellow, and a time penalty at that point pretty much kills you. And because there was a lot of, I think 4 people ended up with post-race penalties. Alex Albon had a VSC infringement, which was bad. And as Ollie Behrman lost out on points because of an unsafe release of his own during the sprint. This was a rough, shoddy race for a lot of people, and Verstappen probably finishes second in that sprint if it wasn't for the unsafe release.
Probably. Well, maybe. He probably still loses out to both McLarens because he was running like third in the camera shot, but not being able to fight with them. If he takes the slicks then, maybe he gets Oscar, but I don't know. There was a decent enough gap for Oscar to get his tires up to temp. Norris would have jumped them all anyway.
Yeah, like it's probably second. You know, I think it's probably second personally, and that's 7 points gone just like that because of a Red Bull pit crew error. And like I said, Red Bull used to have the best pit crew in the business. Pepperidge Dre remembers, and
they've been debatably the worst one on the grid this year. They've had multiple 5-second stops, 4.5 5-second stops.
We said it last year. How many cogs does the Red Bull machine have to lose before we start feeling the impacts of it? Adrian Newey was one thing, and you can debate that one with your mother. But losing the best sporting director, the glue guy of your team in Jonathan Wheatley as he heads to Sauber, we're starting to feel that impact. And yeah, it's
well, the shame for them with Wheatley. I don't think there was any avoiding that. Look, the man's going to go be team principal of a factory F1 team, and he has earned those stripes.
Yeah,
by being the best in the business. You know, you think back to 2020 with the outlap disaster in Hungary, getting the left front portion of Max's car rebuilt, and being able to judge that and run that from the pit lane. They're missing that right now, and while the Red Bull is able to get poles but not really fight McLaren in race trim every weekend, they need all the help they can get, and the pit crew is not holding up their end of the bargain.
It used to be so good. They used to be bulletproof for Verstappen and Red Bull, and now it's the complete opposite. It's now a genuine weakness on this team, as well as their tyre wear, which we'll talk about now because we're talking about the Grand Prix here. And, well, as Ham alluded to, Verstappen did take his third pole position of the year. No one's got more on the grid than Max does, but could only resist the rampant McLarens for so long, with both Piastri and eventually Lando Norris overtaking him for first and second, respectively. The time taken from Norris to pass Max allowed Piastri to run out an 8-second lead over his teammates, which he then pretty much controlled for the rest of the race. A VSC for the smoking Ollie Behrman let George Russell box under VSC and had him close out the podium for third. But to stress this, George Russell finished 37 seconds off the winning car in third. By far the biggest shellacking any F1 team has taken so far this season, without any question.
It's the biggest finishing gap from one car, from the winning car to the next, since the debut of the Red Bull RB19 in 2023.
Oh, the death missile.
The statistical greatest Formula One car ever assembled.
Yeah. That was an arse whipping. And like, but by the time they got out in front, and Max was left behind, the McLarens were a second a lap faster than the field.
It was more. It was 1.2 seconds a lap quicker than the next fastest car at the end of the first stint. Because we talk about Red Bull's tire wear, it was everyone's tire wear except McLaren. And McLaren could just keep pumping in laps over and over again. And this really should have been bigger. Had McLaren actually done the job in qualifying, which seems to be the only thing their drivers can't really get their heads around with this car. Probably could have been that same gap, if not bigger, minus any VSC interventions, because they got to take benefit of that VSC as well. It didn't matter how much of a fight Max put up. The McLarens just eventually wore him down.
Yeah, we've seen this before. It was Australia all over again, where at the peak of his powers, Max could stay with them, but once Red Bull gooses its tires, it drops off a cliff, and there's nothing even Max can do about it. It's essentially bullying him into submission, and yeah, Max inevitably made a mistake which let Piastri through for the lead, and well, Lando Norris is the definition of scared money don't make none at this point to me. He the man is getting coached by his race engineer, Will Joseph, about how to overtake Verstappen, because he still hasn't learned that Max will not let you beat him round the outside. That is Max Verstappen 101.
We saw it at turn one, and, everyone's allowed to run someone off at turn one now, unless it's Max, and then people will think it's worth a penalty. Max learned from last week and ran Norris right off the road at turn two on the first lap. Because he got to the apex first, and that's how we race now in Formula One. It's whack.
Yeah.
But there is a legitimate concern about Norris's racecraft against the craftier guys in the sport, the Verstappens, the Hamiltons. We've been racing at Saudi Arabia for years, and everyone and their mother knows, do not overtake before the final corner. Well, Hamilton tricked him into doing just that. Max was going to cover the inside here every single time because you can run someone all four off to defend. And that's what he kept doing. It took him, 14 laps?
It was a long ass time. It was
14 laps for both of the McLarens to get by. Piastri got by after, 8?
I think it was less than that. I think it was more like 5 or 6. But yeah, I mean, it works out about that. And it took Norris at least half a dozen laps to figure this out. And unless you had a monster run and you're like less than 3 cars behind him on a DRS straight, Max is going to beat you the same way every time. He will not let you beat him round the outside, because especially now the rule's been established. You can run somebody 4 wheels off on the outside as long as you get to the apex first, because that's what Max does better than anyone else on the grid. He turns defense into offense, he butt rushes the apex, and once you get there first, it's your corner. And as we established with the stewards in this race weekend, if you have the line for turn 1, you're automatically given the racing line for turn 2. Hence the lap 1 runoff, and hence what Max kept doing to Lando. And like I said, Lando's getting coached. Now, Lando can spin this all he wants after the race, saying, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. No one criticized you last year for how you raced Max Verstappen. You did the right thing. You punished Max for making mistakes. You did it in Austria. You were unlucky you came off the worst for wearing that when it wasn't your fault. But further on down the road in places like Austin in Mexico, you did the right thing. You bullied Max into making mistakes and driving recklessly. You exposed the worst of Verstappen's traits as a driver. So why have we regressed here? What are we doing? I don't want to play into this narrative that Oscar Piastri is this quiet Mr. Killer Instinct guy, because I think it's a bit more complicated than that. But if Lando Norris is going to be in a title fight with his teammate, which is going to be quite likely the way this season's playing out, you can't afford to be lackadaisical, because you taking so long to pass Max cost him the win. There's no doubt about it.
Cost him a shot at it because their pace was within 100th of one another across the race on clean laps. But you can't get much closer than that. But he has to be able to roll with the punches from everyone around him, because if Oscar escapes up the road with the way McLaren is at the moment, he's just going to win the race. And vice versa. Piastri has blown a couple qualifying laps. He's probably lucky that Norris did get run out at turn 1.
Yeah.
Because if not, Norris would have been the first in the queue, and then Norris would have scampered up the road.
Yeah, if anything, Norris was a little bit unlucky. Yes, he was lucky in the sprint that it played out the way that it did, but he got booted off the road at turn 2 on the opening lap, and that allowed Russell and Piastri to jump him in the queue, and that was huge for Piastri. Oh, it was Kimi. Yeah, quite right. Kimi was third, quite right. And yeah, simply put, it's one of those little moments that don't mean much but adds up, because letting Piastri be at the front of the queue was huge in this instance. And yeah, it was Piastri winning by doing next to nothing, essentially. And that's what it will be sometimes at McLaren, the way it's playing out now.
Yeah, it's the nature of the field right now, with McLaren having such a big... when the cars are not thermally limited on the tires, Red Bull are there. Red Bull can fight with them. If anything, Red Bull were quicker last race, top to bottom, in Saudi Arabia. But here, no shot. No shot. They blew the field away. This was, I think, the first time where we're like, okay, McLaren is beating the allegations in race trim, where they maximized the weekend in terms of points paying sessions. They got everything they could get. They were untouchable in both sprint and Grand Prix trim. And it's like the highest end of what we thought McLaren could have been going into the season, this track then created.
Yeah. I think it's as simple as that, really. McLaren, this was the pre-season McLaren that people feared going into the season. Well, I remember when I was doing my pre-season coverage for Autosport, the general sentiment in the paddock was McLaren had 2 to 3 attempts on the field. Some teams thought it was as much as half a second. This was the first time where it looked like it was half a second.
It was almost 0.7 a lap. It was a 0.67 a lap on average over Verstappen, who was the next quickest car in the field. There is, and at that point, there's not a whole lot you can do besides weather the storm. Max said it as much after the race, like, yeah, I just tried to have a fight because I knew not a whole lot else was going to happen. And then he ended up unlucky with Russell going long and being able to pit under VSC.
Yeah, just one of them unlucky things, really. I mean, Norris saying, oh, Max killed his race by racing me so hard. No, the VSC took him off the podium. It wasn't anything to do with the fight with you. He was able to hold George behind him before the VSC happened. It's just one of them racing deals. Sometimes you get the short straw. It happens. I could put this off no longer because further back, Ferrari had another hodge of embarrassment.
Much further back.
A reverse.
All right. I am going to crack open my Diet Dr. Kelp. I'm going to hand Dre the lawn chair, and I'm going to let him cook.
A reverse strategy had Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari on medium tyres stuck behind Charles Leclerc on the hards in a chase-down attempt of Kimi Antonelli in a fight for 6th place. After 5 excruciating laps, Ferrari forced Leclerc into a swap, only for Hamilton to overheat his mediums and Ferrari forced him to switch back around again. And on the final lap, Carlos Sainz took a contact-inducing lunge at Hamilton unsuccessfully. No further action was taken by the stewards because they said that neither party was wholly predominant to blame. Carlos Sainz forced contact and dive-bombed him. Hamilton turned in earlier than he normally did. So, in other words, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Get out of my office.
The lawn chair has hit the back of the Ferrari strategist.
What the fuck are these guys doing?
Let's do a little bit of stage setting before we actually break into the nitty-gritty of just how ass Scuderia Ferrari is this year. They finished off last year, now, more as a product of McLaren not knowing how to use their car. But Ferrari was a pit stop away from stealing an unlikely World Constructors' Championship last year. 1 pit stop away.
Yeah, 14 points. Enough of a swing where if Sainz beats Norris in Abu Dhabi, they win the Constructors on countback because it would have been a tie on points.
Yes. Well, Ferrari has redesigned basically the entire car in the last year of a regulation set. Now, if you remember how that went for McLaren in 2013, you'll be very familiar with the story. Ferrari were on raw pace, the 5th fastest car here, and it wasn't a close 5th.
No.
They were slower than Williams. Alex Albon torched these guys in Grand Prix trim.
Yeah. Alex Albon was genuinely quicker than both Ferraris on merit, and the only reason Carlos Sainz wasn't up there was because 1, he drove recklessly, 2, he was the victim of a team order by Williams, and 3, there was 2 Ferraris to beat. It was almost like a carbon copy of what Williams did to Isaac Hadjar in Saudi Arabia the week prior, and basically using a pincer movement to lock the guy behind out. Absolute fucking holics honestly. And Ferrari were a total embarrassment this weekend. Like, they took a sprint podium, and and don't get me wrong, they gambled on Hamilton coming in early because he was stuck behind Alex Albon and couldn't pass him. They got lucky. It was a good call to go on slicks early. They were rewarded for it. Fair enough. This was after their stupid asses put Charles Leclerc on intermediate tyres in a goddamn Miami river and thought he was going to be fine driving into bits. Ollie Behrman aquaplaned on extreme wets. Extreme wets! Like, if anything, it's partly Formula One's fault for not delaying the start earlier, because there was no reason to put cars out for a reconnaissance run in those sorts of conditions. But in any case, putting Charles out on inters was dumb as shit, right? So they're down a car for the sprint already. They didn't qualify particularly well at all. And now there's this... The thing is, right, the strategy is one thing, and it's dumb as hell, because you knew exactly what you were doing from the start. You put Hamilton, the slower car, on the reverse strategy. There is a chance you cross over on track during the race. It's obvious you let Hamilton go through because, in theory, he's the quicker car, and you let him have a run at Antonetti. If you're that precious about team orders, you can always swap them back again because you have the luxury of your other car being directly behind. If you really want to be that cute about positions, you give Hamilton a fair crack at it, and if he can't do it, you can swap him back around again. No, you've got to sit there for 5 fucking laps, not sure about letting Hamilton through when he's blatantly the quicker car. He's sitting there goosing his medium tyres in dirty air behind his own teammates over the easiest and most trivial of decisions. And no surprise, Hamilton sasses the ever-loving shit out of you, deservedly so, saying, oh, have a goddamn tea break while we're at it. Oh, do you want me to let Carlos Sainz through too? Yeah, for once, I understand why Hamilton was so sassy, because he couldn't believe how stupid his team was being.
It's literally what happened in China in 2019 between Vettel and Charles when they did the same fucking thing. And they crossed over, and then they sat there staring at their screens for 5 minutes. I do not know which car is faster. Why are they like this?
They're that afraid of upsetting people's feelings. It's that simple. Like,
you're Ferrari!
They're Ferrari.
You built your last successful period off the back of pissing off anyone who you could reach out and touch, making it a point to do so. You held this sport hostage in Indianapolis 2005 going, we're going to embarrass the sport on a global stage for 2 hours because you fucked us this year on the tire changes.
Yeah.
Why do you care so much what people think?
Because they're soft. They've gone soft.
They're soft.
They are soft as dog shit, and they are too afraid of pissing off their superstar drivers these days. What, did Sebastian Vettel...
It's an alternate strategy. It's an alternate strategy. Swap the cars around. If it doesn't work out, you swap them back.
We've seen
Lewis is sitting. Lewis is sitting in that cockpit like, damn, this is what Seb had to deal with all those years?
We've seen Lewis be prepared to give up a podium for Valtteri. Because Valtteri was such a brilliant team player, he coughed up a win to help Lewis win the title. Like, it's not like Lewis is an arrogant dude or that he's not prepared to play the team game. We have plenty of evidence to suggest that he has. This was a simple, let the guy through alternate strategy run, and you were so afraid of pissing off Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, you successfully pissed off both for no net gain, and you very nearly lost another position due to Carlos Sainz taking a hell of a lunge on the final lap. But you know what's the worst part about this, Cam? It's not the fact they fucked up an alternate strategy. It's the fact they were fighting for 7th and 8th.
This team was being talked about as double championship contenders this year. In fact, someone on this podcast selected a Ferrari driver for the World Championship.
I picked Charles Leclerc to win the title. I thought Ferrari was going to have the best car to start the year, and that this was going to be the year they put it all together. Hamilton wasn't going to be a contender.
If anything, they're falling further off of the pace as the year's going on.
Cam, they're 152 points off the Constructors' Championship lead through 6 weekends.
I would counter that with this. McLaren are the only team at the front with 2 drivers consistently in contention.
Cam, it's over.
However, yeah, let me cook here. I am more concerned with the fact that Ferrari were 56 seconds off a win in a basically unaffected race. They were 20 seconds off of the Russell and Verstappen fight. They are not fighting for wins. They're not fighting for podiums. They're not even fighting to be second or third down the road. They're fighting to keep their head above the midfield right now.
They were 8 seconds off the win in Saudi Arabia 2 weeks ago. Where is this performance balance? Where's the balance of this car?
There isn't any. It's the same. It's what we talk about with the Red Bull, where the pace of the Red Bull is through the eye of a needle. When it's in the window, it can go fight for wins and it can go fight for poles. Only the Ferrari's even more extreme, where it's contending for podiums or minor points.
A minute off a win in a generally shenanigan-free race. You're 152 points back through 6 rounds. It's over. This season is over. You're not winning the constructors. Literally, Maranello needs to pack it up right now and go all in for next year. There's nothing for them here. You might as well tank the year because there's nothing for them in this season. Nothing.
No. Here's the worst part, right? With how Ferrari has talked about, like, along with Red Bull powertrains, wanting to get next year's rules changed, would they be doing those talks? Talking about, we need to make the engine stronger so the hybrid element isn't as stressed. Would they be having those talks if they were confident in their powertrain division for next year?
No, they're insecure as shit. That's obvious.
No. Because like Mercedes and Honda are like, nope, we're good. Leave them as it is.
Mercedes were bragging to journalists, mocking Christian Horner and Ferrari for wanting that hybrid deployment ratio changed before the season started. Mocking. Yeah. I could tell you that off the record. Like Mercedes are laughing at their competition right now. They think they have something for next year. That's more than obvious to me. It's shades of 2013 all over again. They think they're cooking something up for next year, while in the meantime, Ferrari are running and telling mama while sitting as F1's 4th best team right now.
Get the rules changed because it's not fair. Because Horner keeps trying to parrot it as it's going to ruin the sport. Would someone confident in their ability to go out and win next year be saying that?
Absolutely not.
And Ferrari are right there going, well, I think we need to have the rules looked at. I think we need to have things revised. It is a train wreck. And in the meantime, like, this was Lewis's best race by a country fucking mile in red so far. And even then, he gets no peace from it.
Nope.
Because of the team orders row. Carlos Sainz is watching us, who like, hey, I remember when I used to drive that car. What the hell is the Texas County Mountie doing in Arkansas? Why is Carlos Sainz following Ferrari home by less than a second? In a Williams who were dead. This team was dead 5 years ago. And this Williams team is not what Williams were. And practically Williams in base and name only. And through bringing last year's car forward and adjusting it around, they had the 4th best car on merit this weekend.
Before his safety car infringement, Alex Albon was 4th in the sprint and would have been and was 5th in the Grand Prix. It's the second top 5 Alex Albon's had this season. It's a 2
top of the midfield right now.
Yeah,
they are legitimate best of the rest right now. Behind
Haas and Racing
McLaren are the best, and then it is a group, and then it's Williams.
Yeah, Williams are the clear number 5 team in the sport right now, ahead of Haas and the Racing Bulls, because I think that's your third group, really. And then it's Aston Martin, Alpine, and Sauber. That's how I look at the power rankings right now. On a good day, Racing Bulls can get in the points. No doubt about that. And Haas have got cars in the points on multiple occasions this season already. The Haas have got a good car and a good pet driver pairing. Ollie Behrman can score points. Esteban Ocon can score points. They've got a good pairing going on there. That's the power rankings right now. Williams right now are the 5th best team in the sport at worst. They are locked into the 5 spot barring shenanigans right now.
And that is huge financially for them, knowing the situation that they're still in behind the scenes. James Vowles is cooking with gas so far this year.
They thought this was going to be a down year for Williams. They thought it was going to be a down... They're 5th right now.
This is a B-spec version of last year's car that they've already taken out of the wind tunnel and said, we're all in on 26. And they're going to get away with it right now.
They are set to make, what, roughly 40 million more than last year? Because weren't they 9th in the standings last season?
Give me 1 sec on that. I'll get back to you.
I'm pretty sure they were 9th last season. If they're 5th, that's about 40 million more in prize money.
Yeah, because Alpine overtook everybody right at the end of the year.
Alpine went berserk. Alpine went berserk down the stretch.
Yes, they were 9th, but they from about Monaco onwards, every couple of races they would score points. Yeah, they're 5th right now with a reheated version of last year's car.
It's a
same tub, a modified version of last year's tub. They've only missed out on points once this year, and that was in Bahrain.
They're having a huge season. This would be a huge season for Williams. Which, given it was meant to be a down regen year, they are going to laugh all the way to the bank if they end up with P5 in the constructors. That would be an incredible season. James Vowles will be locked in as team boss of the year without even a second thought if that happens. So yeah, great
weekend
for Williams. A lot of positive signs for them. Not so much a Ferrari. Bunch of
Honsity. So it's like I keep saying it. They are the Dallas Cowboys of Formula One. And this is one of those more down Dallas Cowboys years where you go, can we please get rid of Jerry Jones? And then Jerry Jones just keeps being here.
He's just here trading for fancy wide receivers and finishing 9 and 7. It's because they're not terrible. They're just bad enough where they disappoint you. And that's the worst thing you can be as a Formula One team or as a sports team in general. Being bad is one thing, but being mediocre is arguably even worse. And that's what Ferrari are right now. They're mid. Literally mid.
That car was capital S slow all weekend, to take a page out of Valentine's piece on them for the race.
100%.
I mean, beyond that, want to retouch on Kimi Antonelli as well, because again, probably first weekend where he was legitimately quicker than George pretty much all weekend.
Yeah.
Till the second half of the Grand Prix. This kid's good. We have a Formula One pole sitter younger than the PlayStation Portable.
Younger than Oblivion coming out. Yeah. Yeah, that hurt. As a 32-year-old man, this hurts me.
As a 27-year-old man, that also hurts.
Fuck you for bringing that up. Again.
Look. My knees balance it out. My knees balance me up to at least 50.
Yeah, mine don't. I don't need to catch your strays because you have knee insecurity.
It's instability, sir. Unfortunately, with Antonelli, kind of both with the sprint and getting driven into by Max in the pits, and then the Grand Prix could have finished ahead of Russell, maybe, but Russell getting the rub of the green with the VSC jumped him up the field.
If nothing else,
if you can keep that going, this is going to be it's already a very good rookie season so far, even if you end it here.
He doesn't need to beat Russell. If he's in the ballpark, that's brilliant, quite frankly.
How good Russell's been this year. Yeah.
And Russell's been incredible this season. Yeah.
The fact that he did in sprint qualifying and again in race qualifying, he's getting the hang of it.
Yeah, so far it's looking like Kimi is as advertised. And if that's the case, then Formula One needs to be on notice in the next couple of years, because a team of Russell and Antonelli is going to feed families. They're going to be serving delicious meals.
Oh, if Mercedes are as rumored for next year, it's those two for the championship next year.
Yeah, George Russell's going to be immediate championship favorite without even a second thought. Terrifying stuff. Right, Formula One is back. in a week's time. That's a weird thing to say. Doesn't happen very often. We got a week off, and then we head down to Imola for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. At Imola, the C6 Pirelli makes its debut. It will still probably be a one-stop race. Can't wait. That's a thing.
We're just going to drive to a pace and not change tires because you cannot pass worth a damn at Imola.
Note for you IndyCar fans out there, forgive us. We didn't think there was enough on the table for an episode this time around because Barber was kind of boring and it was just...
How much can we grandstand about Alex Palou's brilliance for a half hour?
You want to do that? I refuse. If you start your own podcast.
That's all right. You don't have a choice.
Yeah, look, I can only put this off for a week because there's another IndyCar race this weekend. It's the Grand Prix of Indianapolis on the road course, and it's going to be a mandatory 3-stop race with 2 softs and 2 hard tires because IndyCar is chronically insecure about its racing product. We'll talk more about that on next week's double IndyCar episode, as well as our bikes returning to the French Grand Prix at Le Mans this weekend. And oh, by the way, rain expected all 3 days.
Oh, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our bikes? Question mark? Well, I mean, for the Indy road course, it's not like, it's Alex Palou's best track statistically.
Luckily, it's also Christian Lundgaard's best track, so could be quite a tussle again between those two, the 2 championship leaders right now. Yeah, Christian Lundgaard is championship runner-up right now. What a time to be alive. Free my brother Lundgaard. Anyway.
You will dream of HRC liveries and nothing else.
Yes, we need it in diecast form. That is all I will say on the matter. We'll be back next week to talk our bikes at Le Mans and IndyCar's doubleheader, catching up on Barber and talking about the Grand Prix of Indianapolis to start previewing the Indy 500, the big one. Until then, I've been Dre Harrison, they've been Cam Buckley, and just before we go, we wanted to dedicate this episode to the tragic loss of Jochen Mass this past weekend. Was announced during the Miami Grand Prix. Very sad to see a genuine racing legend go, and you've probably, unfortunately, seen this in the news quite recently, because sadly, the way journalists work in this country, British Superbikes is only headline news when someone passes away, and that's the unfortunate reality of covering minor racing series. You've probably seen the news of what happened at Alton Park this past weekend in the British Supersport Championship, where there was a utterly horrific accident that claimed the lives of Shane Richardson and Owen Jenner. May they ride in peace, and it's tragic news to hear that they've both succumbed to their injuries at the scene. Just horrible.
Also need to keep Tom Tunstall in our thoughts as well, because he's still fighting very, very grave injuries in his neck and abdomen. So we wish everyone else involved a speedy recovery. And God, it's the nature of motorcycle racing. We all have to live with when we talk about it.
British Superbikes is one of the best run motorsport series in the world. They absolutely put safety first. Stuart Higgs knows what he's doing when it comes to running that series. He does it in an exceptional job. He learns from the very best of motorsport and beyond, and puts on a great product and a great show. And it's, unfortunately, even with all of that, there is sometimes just nothing you can do in bike racing to prevent the worst from happening. Rest in peace, Shane, Owen, and Jochen. We'll see you next time.